it's called engaged mindfulness, which means that we're looking at the frontier of where mindfulness can engage with the world. So we're aware of how we've all gone through a process of working with ourselves in an inner way. And then at some point, for a lot of us, a question arises as to how can we really take our practice out into the world in a way that offers a resilience and a sustainability and a connectedness that often when people go out into the world can be a little bit lacking or unbalanced. Often there can be burnout for activists who feel so passionately about what they're doing. So I think mindfulness has a huge amount to offer there as we kind of balance those two, the inner and the outer. So this is what we're going to look into, and we're going to draw strongly from a wonderful, beloved teacher, Joanna Macy. Christine will tell us a lot more about her. And then we'll also see if we can immerse in a practice that I feel offers a lot of ground for us as we take steps into our engagement with the world in a conscious way. So I'd like to hand over to Christine now.
Good morning, everyone. And there was me thinking we were going to have another moment of sitting before launching into our topic. Let's do that now together. So just finding your seat. Dropping into this precious and alive, miraculous body. And becoming aware of all that's present. Thoughts and feelings, sensations. The space around you. And the day, the weekend you're inhabiting. As well as maybe a sense of the togetherness, this virtual miraculous togetherness that's here with exactly 100 of us in this moment. And sensing underneath us this good earth, steady, nourishing and supporting. Offering us a place to come to rest. Okay. So yeah, I'd like to give you a brief introduction into this actually quite big topic. We have an hour and a quarter in total for our session, so you'll get a taste or a glimpse of it. And maybe to start where Faye just now also started, with our very well established way of relating to our practice, which can be perhaps described as a sense of practicing in a way that relates to my personal and individual suffering and struggles, and to support me to live my life in a good way. That's certainly how I came to practice just about 2 decades ago now. From a sense of wanting to know myself, wanting to, I was really intrigued by the idea of mind training, and this sense that we could, that it was possible to really make the most of this wondrous mind, in a similar way that I might want to train my body to be strong and healthy. And another element for me was that I wanted to be of help, of service in some way. I studied art therapy, and I felt that somehow practice might help me be a better version of that therapist I thought I was going to be. And it wasn't until I became a mother 7 years ago that I suddenly became aware in a new way of our collective and maybe shared struggles and challenges. So yes, I have my personal suffering and difficulties, but also there is shared difficulty in our community, in our society, in our country, in our world. And of course, I knew about that before I became a mum, but it just really came into the foreground for me. And I wonder, maybe for you also, there might have been a moment of really waking up to that, or maybe it's more of of just a sense of, yes, there are all these big issues going on, these very mammoth challenges that are around for us as humans, and a question of how to relate to that. And so Akam Rinpoche, who was one of the founders of Samiling, he mentioned sometimes this term, outer practice. So we have our inner practice where we're kind of on the cushion and we relate to what's here. And then there's the outer practice where we relate in a deliberate and intentional way to the world around us and to what's happening there. And we may all, in fact, we will all have different views and experiences of what those challenges are that our community, our world faces. And also very likely we'll have different views on on kind of what's needed in order to move towards a more flourishing world. And so this session now, and also our weekend on engaged mindfulness, doesn't provide answers in that way. It doesn't tell us what to do, but it really intends to support us with doing what we feel is needed, and a kind of resourcing around that. So in the compassion modules, we've been looking at the definition that the Dalai Lama has offered us on compassion. And he describes these two different parts. The first part of compassion is this turning towards, or this sensitivity to suffering in self and others. And then the second part is, now how can we respond to that? And he describes it as the strong commitment to try to relieve and prevent that suffering. And so in engaged mindfulness, we use that same definition of compassion, and we apply that a little bit more deliberately to these big topics that actually we may have many good reasons for not looking at them a lot of the time. Because certainly for me, I can feel overwhelmed, I can feel scared, I can feel really worried about where things are heading to. And there was a recent research done that shows the incredible amount of people, like the percentage of people who think that life for the future generations is going to be more difficult than our time. That has just gone up and up in recent decades. So if that is a shared concern, then actually that might weigh on us in different ways. And turning towards that can feel counterintuitive, like, well, who am I? What can I really do? And I'm just, that sense, and it just upsets me and I can't change it anyway. So why would I even go there? So someone who has done a lot of work in this area is this wonderful, by now elder, Joanna Macy, who Faye also mentioned. She's a grandmother. She's in her early 90s and still just such a powerhouse of a being, really. Yeah, one of the most inspiring people to me in my life. And she is a scholar of Buddhist theory as well as of systems theory. So she knows a lot about systems theory. And she would also describe herself as an activist. She's been an environmental activist. It started out around nuclear weapons, nuclear waste, and the huge legacy that leaves into the future. And so she's come up with what she's called the work that reconnects, which is a way that helps us do these two things that the Dalai Lama was talking about: turning towards and then finding our way into some form of action. Again, not describing what that may be, but helping us find it for ourselves. So I'd like to just share my screen here. And it's disappeared. I had it ready. Okay, never mind. The spiral has got 4 stages, not too complicated. I'm sure I can describe it. And the first part of it is a resourcing stage to get to that point where we can turn towards the suffering. And so we start with gratitude. We start with what's good, what's well, with what we love about this world. And by connecting with what we love, that's a really strong ground from which then to also open up to, if this is what I love, I am concerned if it's under threat in some way. So the second stage is what Joanna calls honoring our pain for the world. Not just acknowledging, not just tolerating, no, honoring. And that flavor of honoring, I think, is a really important one, because what she says with that is that this pain and our willingness to turn towards it is something very precious. It's the other side of the love that we have. And by actually acknowledging it, actually opening up to it, it can really help us move into the rest of the spiral. So we start with gratitude. We honor the pain of whatever might be there. And then we come into that second half of the Dalai Lama's definition around that, like the kind of now what. And again, we start with the resourcing stage. And this one is called seeing with new and ancient eyes. And it's looking at our relationship, at our perspective to what's going on. And there's a whole host of interesting angles that we can take there. We can look at what's our identity. Am I just me, or am I'm part of my family, part of my community, part of this mindfulness community, part of the human community, part of the world community, the beings on this planet. And Faye's just offering to share the spiral. Yes, please, Faye. Thank you. So you have a visual as well. So just to continue around these new and ancient eyes. Yeah, wonderful. We have our identity. We can also look at power. What is power, and how may our relationship to what we think power is either leave us quite disenfranchised or empowered. So we talk in this work about power with rather than power over. There's also an element around time, deep time, both the history of time and the miracle of development to lead us to where we are. Joanna often says, act your age. And yeah, she doesn't just mean for me, my 39 years, but actually our age as humanity and as planet inhabitants. And also looking to the future generations and the ones to come after us. Someone called Alex Evans, he wrote an interesting book called The Myth Gap, and he summarized as what we really need is a longer sense of now and a larger sense of us. I think there's a lot in that. A longer sense of now and a larger sense of us. So lots of different rich topics to look at and to explore in that stage of seeing with new and ancient eyes. And then the last one in this picture with the seeds of the dandelion, the stage of going forth, the finding ourselves into action, some form of action. And there's so many different ways of acting that that can contribute. So the spiral is something that we can move into whenever we encounter distress. So in the weekend that Faye and I offer, it's a whole weekend event. So we have like two sessions on each of the stages. But if you are watching the news and you see something, there's nothing stopping us from doing that spiral in a minute. Starting with, okay, the noticing something's distressing here, and what's good. We can even come just to the real basic of, as long as we're breathing, there's more right with us than wrong with us. With a touching in with the earth underneath us, whatever you may experience as good in this moment. And then, okay, so from that ground, let's rather than skipping over or pushing away, let's actually pause with what's here. this is really upsetting, concerning, worrying, outrage, provoking, whatever it may be. And then what might be an inspiring or empowering way to see this? What help is there? So just seeing if a little shift in perspective, if that may be available in that moment. And then I think a lot of why I can sometimes feel quite numb from bad news is that it just goes in and then it stops. Whereas if we get to that last stage, what can I do now? However small, maybe I can just take a few breaths and send out heartfelt support to whatever I've witnessed. Maybe I can donate to people who are right there doing something. Maybe I can XYZ. But actually not believing the narrative that I am just me and who am I and what can I do anyway. And in order to kind of find our way into that acting, there's another really important resource that we explore in the weekend, and also we will explore this in the session today, which is our connection with the earth and what we call deep grounding, and using our relatedness and our connectedness with the earth as a source of a whole host of things: energy, inspiration, grounding, as fuel for what may come out of us. But before we go there, I'd like to really briefly mention this idea of hope, and also our weekend has a theme of hope. And hope, we can see that word from different angles. On the one hand, we could see hope as the kind of passive, fingers crossed, I hope it's going to be okay. I hope someone will come up with something that will make it better. And this is not the hope we're talking about. We're talking about hope as a verb, as something that we do, as something that we cultivate, as something that we kind of generate again and again. And a book that certainly has made such an impact in my life was written by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnson, and it's called Active Hope. And this idea of active hope is that in each moment, say we're here, this is our moment in time, things can stay the same, things can easily get worse, and things could get better. And what can I do that will make the likelihood of things to get better more likely rather than less likely? And so even if what I try to do still, it doesn't kind of work, it doesn't help, and things are getting worse, and maybe worse again and worse again, in each moment, it's still possible for things to get better. And I can still generate and cultivate this active hope and the resources for going forth in a way that may bring benefit. What else is there to do in our one wild and precious life? So with that introduction, Faye, let's move towards some more grounding and that deep resource.
Okay, so I'd like to just say a little bit about the role of deep grounding in the engaged mindfulness work, and then we'll do some practice together. So when I was a teenager, I had a poster on my wall, and it said, it was a big picture of a Native American woman, and it said, "The earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth," underneath. And I loved that saying, and I used to write it on my exercise books at school. I don't know why, it was just some response in me. I loved it. It turned my mind around, even as a teenager, and I knew it to be true very deeply in my heart. And when I began to do this work of engage mindfulness, and as I approached Joanna Macy's work and the earth practices that I'm going to give you a taste of in a moment, this saying came back to me, and the memory of how that phrase impacted me came back. And I've thought quite a lot about that since. And I think that what was going on there was, it was I had some instinct of how humanity has kind of disconnected from the earth, has created a dualism of me as sort of risen above and separate from nature and from the kind of interconnected community of all beings. And somehow I knew that belonging to the earth was really the way it is, for me anyway. That was my experience. And that to question that sense of separateness and dualism between myself, us humans, and nature and the earth was a good idea. So the practice I want to offer here is about asking ourselves if we can experientially move towards a sense of deep belonging and embeddedness in the earth, our home, almost to the extent that we might feel a feeling that I'm not actually separate from the earth. I am the earth. The breath I breathe is the breath of the earth. It was given to me by virtue of being born and being given life. And life is all around me, breathing, the trees, other beings, all entangled, all in a sort of awesome system of aliveness, which isn't of my making. And I, in a way, don't even own my own breath or my own body in the way I think. So if we can find a way to experientially rest into that awareness and find there the support of being not just a little me acting for the sake of life on earth, but a me connected to infinite other me's and to the earth, the universe, whatever we want to call it, to the huge mystery of life in its abundance everywhere. Because I think if we can have that sense of a widened identity, then our action comes from a place of groundedness, of standing on our own ground, and a place of I'm standing for the collective good, the earth's good. And somehow, I think if we wonder to ourselves, how has it got to this? How has it come to that man-made climate change is happening? How has it come to that the actions of human beings are causing mass extinction of species? Then if we ask that question, we sort of see that it's from the disconnection. It's from the disconnection. So we need to, if we're going to do this work from a place of true grounding, then we need to be able to find that reconnection which makes a lot of sense as to why Joanna Macy called her work the work that reconnects. And we're going to work with our body. We're going to build on the body scan. I'm kind of assuming that most of you have come across mindfulness in some way before and practiced a little bit. If there's anyone who's new, then this practice will be fine for you also. But for those of you who have practiced mindfulness before, we're going to build on the body scan. We're going to build on our grounding stage in the settling, grounding, resting and support practice. We're going to also work a little with the breath and with our imagination. So we're going to weave together quite a lot of different strands of what we already know here, and take them a little further around the grounding element in particular. So we're working with our body as a way to identify with the body of the earth. It's like our body is a kind of portal into a sense of connection with the body of the earth. And for this practice, it would be great if you could arrange yourself a lying down space, if you can, where you are. You can do it sitting, but I think lying down is best. But we're going to actually start standing up. So if you can create your lying down space and then stand up in a way where you can see the screen, and I'll start us with a little bit of standing. So I'll give you a moment or two. You might also want to stretch because we've been sitting down for a while now. So coming to a standing posture, finding your feet planted on the ground. And we'll begin our practice. So maybe we can wriggle our toes a little and move our feet so as to experience the pattern of sensations creating our connection with the floor beneath us, sort of awakening the soles of our feet as feeling and sensing organs. In fact, the soles of our feet are always very much alive to the surface beneath us when we're walking around. They have an intelligence that creates balance and ability to move on uneven ground or round corners, accommodating the balance of the whole body. So just feeling that intelligence in the soles of our feet and letting the body kind of flow a little and move so that the pattern of sensations in the soles keeps changing. We can play a little with the edge of our balance, swaying a little from one side to another side, to the front and the back. And then coming to stillness. Letting the weight of our body rest down into the soles of our feet. And now we'll imagine that we're growing roots down from the soles of our feet into the rich earth beneath, into the soil. One root coming out of each of our feet and growing down, down, turning into tiny, tiny little roots. Just noticing what it's like to let our awareness drop down into these roots. Our awareness is often very up, very in the head, in the upper part of the body. What's it like to drop down? How does the body respond to that? And now we'll imagine that we can breathe up through our roots, out of the earth, all the way up to the crown of our head, and then back down from the crown through the roots into the earth. So we'll do that now together. So breathing in, up out of the earth, through the roots, into our body, all the way up to the crown of the head, and breathing out, releasing down, 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 back through the body into the earth. So we'll do this a few times. Breathing up, out of the roots, up to the crown and down, back through the roots into the earth. And I'll leave you to do this in your own time for a few breaths. And as you breathe out, a sense of letting the weight of the body, the center of gravity, drop. Any tension can perhaps be affected by the sense of dropping down. And on the in-breath, we're breathing in the connection with the earth, which is always there. We're just now focusing on it. And we'll just add a movement with our arms. So beginning with your hands just below the navel in a kind of cupped position, one on top of the other. And the next time we breathe in through our roots, we'll just make a big circle and bend our knees slightly. Big circle with our fingertips up to above our head, and then we'll bring our hands down as we breathe out in front of the body, as if we're able to shower through the body and down back into the earth. And so we'll do that again. Breathing in, up out of the earth, big circle, hands coming down in front of our body on the out breath. And as we bring our hands down, a sense of sinking back down into the earth through the roots. And then letting the next one be your last one, coming back in your own time to stillness and feeling the soles of the feet. And then moving into your lying down posture, seeing if you can hold the sense of grounding through your moving into your new position. So beginning by ensuring that you're feeling very comfortable. Maybe there's something under your knees, maybe a little pillow under your head, something covering you to keep you warm. And as we lie here, maybe we can imagine roots coming out of the whole of the back of our body. So a similar sense of grounding, connecting down into the earth, resting on the earth and into the earth, letting the body experience that and be open in a sensory way, like the soles of the feet were, open to the energy of connecting with the earth. And if you're sitting, you can do this in exactly the same way through the base of your body in whatever position you're sitting in. And I'd like to read a poem which really summarizes the sense in which I'm meaning the earth for this practice. Maybe there are lots of different ways that we relate to earth in our own cultural experience and memories, but this poem helps, I think, to tune into the quality or the meaning of earth as I'm referring to it here. And it's by Alice Walker, called We Have a Beautiful Mother. We have a beautiful mother. Her hills are buffaloes, her buffaloes hills. We have a beautiful mother. Her oceans are wombs, her wombs, oceans. We have a beautiful mother. Her teeth, the white stones at the edge of the water. The summer grasses, her plentiful hair. We have a beautiful mother. Her green lap immense. Her brown embrace eternal. Her blue body, everything we know. So maybe we can feel a sense of resting into the green lap that Alice Walker writes of. The brown embrace. As we let our body rest. So aware again of those roots growing out of the back of the body, and feeling as if, once again, just as we did before, as if we can breathe up out of the earth in a very peaceful way. No hard or forced breathing, but just very gentle, easeful, breathing up out of the earth through the roots into our body. And then breathing out, down again through the roots to the earth. And of course, as always with our practice, we may notice our mind getting up to all sorts. Maybe some difficulty engaging with this imaginary process and somatic process. Just notice if there is for you. That's quite common with this practice. Some people do take a while to connect or find their way with it. Maybe just being curious about that. And coming back to a feeling way of being in our body as we rest here. And maybe we'll let our attention go down to our feet and just work with this one part of our body for a moment or two. So breathing in and breathing back out down into the earth. And for a while, we'll emphasize the out breath over the in breath. So we'll, of course, still breathe in, but we're just going to let that happen on its own. And then with the out breath, we'll sense our potential for resting down, sinking down to the earth from our feet. And then our lower legs, calves and shins up to the knees. On our out breath, letting this part of our body release down into the earth. Being held by this immense green lap that is our earth. And then our upper legs, our thighs, the big muscles there, up to the buttocks and pelvis. Again, letting this part of our body release down into the earth on the out breath. Releasing into being held, because actually we already are always being held by the earth. We just kind of hold ourselves away from that holding a lot of the time. The lower part of our trunk and our back. Letting this part of our body release on the out breath to the earth. On our back, let's focus for a moment gently on our back. The whole stretch of our spine, our shoulder blades, the backs of our ribs. On the out breath, releasing down into the earth. Very kindly, gently. And this is a warm process. There's warmth in this. It's not cold. Some people feel that the earth is a cold kind of place. But this is much more around a warm, nurturing quality of earth that we're releasing into. And the front of our body and the middle of our body. So solar plexus and belly, chest, heart, collarbones. The rest of the trunk, releasing down through the roots into the earth. And the same with our shoulders, upper arms and elbows, forearms, wrists, hands, fingers and thumbs, palms of our hands and the backs of our hands. All resting down on the out breath into the holding of the earth. And our neck, jaw, ears, the base of our skull, tongue, nose and cheeks and eyes, temples, forehead, the back of our head and interior of our head. And all the way to the crown. Then opening up to the body as a whole, aware again of the stretch of our body all the way down to our toes. And we'll take a few breaths once again from a sense of the wholeness of our body. Gentle breaths, releasing the whole of our body to the earth, into the holding of the eternal brown embrace, as Alice Walker calls it. Maybe as we come towards the end of the practice, we can pause to sense our gratitude for this earth, which gives us everything, for the undying, infinite abundance, our food, the air we breathe, the beauty, life-giving, awesome. And the same for our own bodies, even if they don't work exactly as we would hope. The breath, the organs doing their work. Our bones, our muscles, enabling movement. Our eyes, which can see. And back again to the earth, this earth that's always there, wherever we are, wherever we go. There's always the earth holding us. In any moment we can remember that. And we can let ourselves be held, supported. And nurtured by that grounding presence. And we'll close our practice just by feeling our body, how it is now, maybe with a resonance of the breathing process or the gratitude, or perhaps there's something else that's visited you too in the practice. So letting that also be here. Just resting. And now, just taking your time, gradually coming out of that, opening your eyes, stretching, rolling to one side. If you want to take a moment to reflect, you can do some journaling or just sit and come to